Tesla and X CEO Elon Musk discreetly gave tens of millions of dollars to Republican organizations, including groups with ties to former aide to former President Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, as well as supporters of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, the Wall Street Journal reported Tuesday. Their print headline read, "Musk quietly poured millions into GOP causes since 2022. In the fall of that year, $50 million from Musk funded a series of advertisements for the group Citizens for Sanity, attacking Democrats on issues like immigration and medical care for transgender children. The ads primarily ran in battleground states ahead of the 2022 midterm elections, but eventually made their way to Delaware, with names of Stephen Miller's legal group listed as the directors and officers of the group.
In 2023, Musk gave $10 million in support of DeSantis' campaign for president, according to people familiar with the donations. The Wall Street Journal writes that the money was sent through a group called Faithful and Strong Policies, and over half of it would end up in a pro-DeSantis PAC that we know as Never Back Down. The financial donations show that Musk was a key player in funding Republican candidates and causes long before reportedly working with the super PAC, America PAC, which expressed strong support of Trump this year. According to the Wall Street Journal, the PAC proposed a budget of $160 million, most of which would come from Musk, to meet their goal of winning 800,000 voters for Trump this fall. In July, Musk said he plans to commit $45 million a month to the PAC, according to the Wall Street Journal. But back in March, Musk posted on X that he did not intend to donate to either Trump or Biden's campaigns, writing, "Just to be super clear, I am not donating money to either candidate for U.S. president." That's a little misleading because he is funding America PAC, and America PAC is doing some ground game operations for the Trump campaign. In fact, there's reporting that came out just this week that Turning Point Action, which is Charlie Kirk's C4 of Turning Point USA, and America PAC have combined resources where America PAC is essentially providing the funding and Turning Point Action is providing the bodies. And they have apparently hundreds of staffers now, mostly in Arizona and Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's very misleading. It's confusing to most Americans because, Citizens United opened up this whole array of dark money that can flow into 501c4s, which are not nonprofits, they're political nonprofits, and you don't have to disclose where the money comes from. So, and then they can move money into other organizations, and it becomes this big game where a C4 can go into a PAC, and PAC money can go into a C4. It's really confusing. There's another group called Building America's Future that he put in 2022, $53 million into, in 2021, $11 million. And two of the things that they did was they put $10 million into undermining Kamala Harris, specifically black supporters, around the menthol cigarettes, saying that she was, they had flyers that were distributed in Arizona saying, stop cackling Kamala. I can't even say it. See, that's like great messaging, guys. But the menthol cigarettes in particular, they were fear-mongering the black community, saying that Biden and Harris wanted to ban menthols.
Well, they did.
They did, but they were using it as a tool, and that's how these groups work, right? They also blamed her for the invasion of illegal immigrants over the border.
Also partially her fault.
But the point is that they're weaponizing this, and he didn't technically give money to the candidates, but he has funded outside groups. And there's a lot of money to be made in this space, too. Let's not deny that there are consultants making a lot of money off of these things. There's folks that are starting these groups, Stephen Miller. I mean, it's definitely a grifter bonanza when you start opening up these groups, taking money from big donors who, he can lose the money easily. $53 million is nothing to Elon Musk. He has a political agenda. I don't know if he necessarily knows how to strategically target the folks, people on the left, if that's his goal. But the people that he's giving money to, they haven't been winning at this. 2022 is failed efforts, so it's a win-win for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it shakes out. I actually just did some reporting on the ground game efforts of the Trump campaign versus the Kamala campaign for a magazine feature that's coming out in our November edition of The Spectator. And they do have very different strategies. Obviously, they're both spending tons of money in swing states, but they're targeting different types of voters. I mean, we talked about this earlier in the show about how in North Carolina specifically, the Kamala Harris campaign is trying to get turnout up in rural places, which is sort of Trump's bread and butter. So that's an interesting strategy. Of course, she's also trying to boost the base of the Democrats as well in big cities. The Trump campaign is doing something very different, which is they're actually specifically targeting low to mid-prop voters because of the fact that he performed very well with people who had never voted before in 2016. So they're focusing really heavily on new voter registration efforts, as well as turning out people who voted for Trump in 2016 but did not in 2020. And they've also really stepped up their game in terms of mail-in ballots and absentee voting, which the Republican Party traditionally has been very bad at.
But Arizona, I mean, it's very popular in Arizona, and that has been in effect in Arizona way before the pandemic. And so when he started to challenge it, folks in Arizona, Republicans were like, hey, Donald Trump, stop that. It's really popular in Arizona. We've been using it for a long time. The other side of this is just my own little pet peeve. Elon Musk is using X literally as a political weapon. I mean, he owns the company. He's the CEO of the company. He's endorsed Donald Trump. He's definitely pushing and boosting right-wing support on there. It's basically his own super PAC, and he's not disclosing it.
Well, it is his private company, though, so he is allowed to use it how he wants, say what he wants on it, yeah?
Private companies have limitations on what they can contribute to. He has to register as a C4 if he wants to.
Right, but you're talking about limiting speech at this point because...
Well, there is limits. Okay, so yes, corporations are people too, but they also have limitations on their speech.
But the CEO is allowed to say whatever they want.
But are they allowed to... They could say it, but through an entity. So he can go out there in the woods and say it all he wants, or in front of a bunch of people and say it, but he's doing it through an entity that he owns, which is different.
I don't know if I agree with that, considering we also see...
It's worth exploring.
Yeah, I mean, we also see Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg at Meta, and then previously Jack Dorsey shared their political opinions on their own platforms, and no one seemingly had a problem with it then.
I don't know. I don't remember that happening, actually. Okay. And Jack Dorsey supports RFK Jr., so he's also in bed with Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with X, people are very upset because there's this very popular social media platform that does really well with conservative speech now. And yet a few years ago, there were conservatives actively being censored on the same platform, as well as through Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And it wasn't a problem then that those political viewpoints were being suppressed. Now Elon Musk speaks through a platform that he owns, and his tweets do really well, and it's a problem. I just feel like there's a little bit of hypocrisy there.
I think there's a couple issues here. First off, progressives were also banned and
that's fair. That's true.
And it never gets enough attention. And they're still being so for their speech. And unfortunately, we don't have the leaks that prove that case. With that being said, look, okay, he has a company and he has a fiduciary responsibility with that company. Companies, yes, they can take political stances, but in an election, companies usually have to put money into campaign ads to do so. I don't know what the answer is. I think it's a good argument to be made with FEC, and it would be an interesting complaint to file if anybody wants to take that up, because he is weaponizing something that he owns in a way. Yes, you can speak on a platform, right? If you have a newspaper and you're the owner of the newspaper, you have full right to go into the opinion section and cast an opinion. But if the company is now utility for the Donald Trump campaign, and it's not that popular anymore, by the way. He has lost a significant number of users, so much so that just a couple of days ago, the company was devalued 80%. Like, it is sinking. I think True Social might be more popular right now.
But isn't X different from a newspaper in that it's not a publisher, so it doesn't have the same responsibility to be responsible for the things that it publishes on the platform, right?
I think there's an argument to be made of that. I mean, but he goes back and forth. On one hand, he says he's a publisher. On the other hand, he's a private company when it's convenient to him. He's a free speech absolutist when it's convenient to him. Fundamentally, I don't think that Elon Musk really understands the American legal system, because he had this issue when he said he was going to buy Twitter at the time, and then he got in trouble with the SEC because he was violating, because there's a way that you have to announce you're going to purchase something, and of course how stocks get inflated. So he's already been in trouble for this. He doesn't seem to understand how this all works. There's a great book that just came out about Elon Musk, that Character Limit, and it goes into the details behind the scenes about how he just refuses to take advice from folks who are saying, listen, you can't say this, you can't do this, it's going to hurt your company's bottom line. And just like Trump, he just does what he wants.
Well, I mean, there's something to be said for you buy something because you believe in a principle, and even if it doesn't boost the bottom line of the company, you're sufficiently committed to that principle. You're willing to run the company in a way that maybe doesn't balloon profits beyond where it was when you purchased it. And I mean, I think a CEO is free to make that decision.
Yeah, he has a board, though, and
sure,
there are some responsibilities he needs to do. Listen, I don't care what he does with the company at this point; it's done. But he does have that right, and he's sinking it, and hopefully something else will pop up that's a little bit more democratic.
Yeah, Blue Sky. Apparently, everybody's on Blue Sky nowadays.
Threads ain't it either. We need something.
Exactly. We have a lot more topics to get to here on Rising. Stick around.